Welcome to this edition, this one, of what the fuck happenings here in Mendham. Yes. Uh, so, well, big happening is the modern mystics started making videos again, Beardy Man, and talking determinism, which is a good subject because it's my impression that once somebody starts thinking about the programs that are inside of you, the nonsense crap, your stupid addictions, your stupid habits, the stupid things your brain is telling you is something you need, the stuff you chase and why you chase it, you'll figure out that life's pretty stupid. All the important stuff gets neglected, so you can do garbage, and live on hope. I remember most of my life I carried a condom in my, wallet or whatever I was, in my sock, wherever I could carry one. And it's just hope. Never came in handy. But it's the kind of thing, your brain lives for this idea that you're in the game and you're going to somehow win the game and you're getting somewhere, or and it's like the soap operas. I talk about the idea of these addictions, and it won't satisfy your addiction. It won't be over. Your team wins the World Series, and you just go play the same game all over again the next season, and it's just and it's just so silly. So much of it is just, you can rationally understand, that what you're doing, what you're admiring, what you're appreciating for all kinds of wrong reasons. And it's all this psychological bullshit that's manipulating you. So anyway, that's a good theme in my opinion for getting people to reflect on maybe the whole idea of thinking the game is a good idea. Yeah, maybe that's stupid. So in the background should be praying mantises. Yeah, they have a lot of quiet time, and then they do something incredibly awful. Quiet time. Trying to get to the point with the females laying the eggs or something. That would be an interesting thing to be able to video, but I think they do it at night, so it's probably not going to happen. And it takes for the sex thing was going on for like a day and a half, and I think the females kind of want to wait for a crowd to pile on and something. I don't know what it is. Lots of weirdnesses. Anyway, enough of that. It's just part of the nature thing, and you see it for what it is. It's just so bad. And, you just... Does that have to go on for another million years? Do we just have to keep this stupid grinder grinding? Little lives, wiggle, wiggle, squish, ouch, horror, horror, do it again. I mean, it's not the kind of thing, it's not just rinsing and repeating. This isn't some kind of shampoo, this living thing. It has all these nasty bits in it. And people should just talk about the fact that, yes, I recognize that. After you live a little while, it doesn't take too long, start getting into your 30s or 40s, you start to see the crappy bits showing up. You watch a few things that you didn't know was going to happen. Brother dies or something, parents, all that kind of stuff. And, come on. Why play a game and say, yeah, let's force that again on somebody else? And maybe much worse. Maybe much worse. You always have to keep that in mind. So anyway, the mystic thing. I really like Nick. I think most people understand that. I really, if there was somebody I could impress, that I'd feel good about impressing, it would be Nick. If I had the option to, force somebody to endure my company for a day, where I get to, be just to be a participant in their life, let's say, for a day, he might be one of the people, or the first on the list of interesting brains to interact with. So, there's no, I don't have anything personal against Nick at all. I like him. It's just the truth. I like the way he thinks in most cases. I like how he thinks. I like that he has, habits of it might not be practical, but they're a diligence and a caution. Let's just say that, an efficiency. He's a guy who plans things, and a guy who does measure twice, kind of a thing. And I admire that kind of stuff. So anyway, so yeah, there's nothing. I mean, he took down his videos, and that certainly wasn't anything I wanted to have happen. And I certainly don't want him to shut up. So anybody who thinks that I'm pleased, I'm not. I clearly, me and Nick have always had a conflict when it starts getting into the subjects of where value gets into the conversation, because Nick has a much more more sanitized, a more sterile, a more academic, a more what's the word people use for that? Well, an academic kind of conversation. Like every subject, we're just talking academically. Models. We're not really talking about a real world. And obviously, I can't have an academic conversation about horror and torture and all that kind of stuff when we know it happens in the real world and there'll be real consequences and all that stuff. So for him, capitalism is it's not perfect, but yes, we'll draw the simple conclusions that yes, well, humans are so dangerous, and that it's better than these alternatives or something like that, and so that would be a room for disagreement, because I think it's short-sighted in terms of thinking that because some people fail, some people can't handle responsibilities of power, that all people are failures, or that all people aren't going to recognize that they have a burdensome job and a huge responsibility, and have no expectation that they're going to do good enough. I mean, if I was president of the United States, I would not be having a good time. Because yes, I knew every decision I'm making is going to hurt somebody, and I would wince. And that's probably the kind of person, like I said, if you have a person who has some sense of being honest and having integrity and not being a fraud or a fake, not having some secret agenda, and we just don't elect people like that. We elect compulsive liars because they tell people what they want to hear rather than the truth. And they purge from their persona the frailty that we're all victims of, moments of excess in terms of reactions or verbiage or bad jokes, even lots of stuff like that, and people just can't handle that. So it takes a special kind of person to plan and screen performance, as a human. But anyway, I just don't agree that you can't find a person who has no other agenda than to perform the job, to do it well as possible, without polluting it with any personal bias or engineering any lies or deceptions to accomplish the task. But anyway, so that's where we started having some kind of disagreements about the whole economy thing and whether the rich have any value, and he has some, he'd say things that I understood to be, from my perspective, to be justifications for huge waste, and like the rich and their yachts and he would find the world a lesser place if it didn't have a bunch of workers building yachts for silly rich people. And those kind of value statements just, they, like I said, there's little ones I've referenced it a couple of times in other videos, just little things where once he asked the question as if this was some sort of, it almost comes from a Hofladay kind of, how can you be that disconnected from reality? But what's so bad about a little Nigerian kid spending 12 hours a day banging, changing big rocks, medium-sized rocks into little rocks? And it just seems so nakedly stupid. The 4 million things I could say would be better for a kid to be doing. But anyway, and so then it bleeds into this, these other philosophical issues where whenever the value stuff comes up, he just doesn't see it the way I see it. He's detached from the system in that sense, where he thinks when he's dead, he's out of the game. And I'm just thinking that's a lack of vision he has for the fact that the only part of you that was ever in the game was just the feeling bit. And it's really not going to be, it's not going to matter that it's not going to be you personally. It's going to be a brain, and the brain's going to do all the humiliating and terrifying things you can imagine happening to somebody are going to happen to those people. And it's really no different than if it happened to you, because they're going to have your sensibilities, and sometimes not, and they're going to be vulnerable to all kinds of different kinds of horrible feelings for different kinds of reasons, and that experience itself is going to be experienced. Those pains and humiliations are going to take place. So as much as you can protect your one little brain from getting dirty, the things that will exist in the future are going to get very dirty and live very, very degraded and dysfunctional lives. And the only, there's nothing about that can be called insignificant or not a distracting fact, in my opinion. It completely distracts me. You just can't point to them and say, oh, it's aliens, it doesn't matter. It's like if aliens existed, it just would create this huge dilemma, because yes, you'd start recognizing, well, if they're feeling things, then they're feeling things, and how they feel is going to matter, and you just can't get around that. As much as you can hate something, it just doesn't matter if that thing is a feeling thing, because you still have to recognize that whatever happens to it is a real event, and the pain is real, the terror is real, the anguish is real, the anxiety is real, and those are all things in my life I know I have a great intolerance for experiencing in any kind of excess. And I'd just be a hypocrite if I said it only matters when it happens to me. And I would not only just be a hypocrite, I'd be stupid. It'd be just ignorant for me to think there's something fundamentally different happening because the person looks different, or because the person was conditioned a little different, or the person speaks another language. None of that really makes any difference. So, academic conversation just doesn't seem appropriate in that environment, and I think that's all Nick was intending, is to have a conversation as if we could be detached viewers of a torture, and then we could talk about well, you know, if they stuck that probe in a little deeper and gave it a little twist right there, that's a little nodule there where there's a bunch of nerves, and they could really create a lot more pain that way. And, you know, as if you're doing some scientific dissection of horror. And it's just really, and again, I'm not even opposed to that. I'm not opposed to something clinical, like a clinical view of the Holocaust even, and you can find well, the Germans weren't all bad, you know, the Nazis, or something like that. Certainly you can do all that. You can find truth, you know, in understanding the dynamic and, you know, why things happen the way they did. And you don't have to just be, you know, completely, you don't have to let your conclusion about the net effect to interfere in a correct diagnosis of the situation. You know, recognizing the fact that something wasn't all bad, even though it's bad enough, you don't want to give it any credit. It wasn't all bad. That kind of thing. And you know, so I like conversations that are honest and deep and thorough. That appeals to me. You know, I like when some truth is revealed. And anyway, so in the process of having conversations with Nick over the years, you know, about how the brain works and how consciousness, we had all those kind of conversations about what the fuck this is that we're experiencing and how it manifests. We came up with lots of metaphors and analogies. I still like my original idea that your brain shows your evolution. Evolution still exists inside of us. The image of our past is still there. The worm, the bug, you know, is still there. The ape, you know, and then this intellectual thing that's piled on top. And you know, but that's a little bit too. It's not enough to explain all the dynamics and the differences between feelings and thoughts, and the fact that the two are wired together, but they're fundamentally different things in a sense. The purpose of thoughts is to deal with feelings, and feelings are a kind of opinion you get, a knee-jerk opinion that your physiology creates as a response to the world. And then your brain fixes the problem in the world by fixing your feeling. It's trying to fix that something's making you feel bad, and it creates a circumstance where to fix that you have to many times fix something that exists in the world. So it's always dealing with the model. You know, we're always living in the model of reality, not in reality. I mean, all those kind of conversations are I see them as very useful, although they're not very, you know, as the world exists now, one obsessed with the trivialist things possible for most people. I mean, 99 out of 100 people can't have a serious conversation because they haven't spent 5 minutes of their life being forced to even think about, let alone talk about, what motivates them and why it motivates them, or why they think what they think. And so they really can't have this kind of conversations because they haven't done all that preliminary work. So anyway, but I think all those conversations I did have with the modern mystic were valuable, and I was disappointed when he took down his videos on those subjects, and then he re-rose as the beardy man, and now he's, you know, destroyed that history also. But yeah, I can't deny that I didn't like the message in many of his videos because his detachment was too obvious. I mean, if he prefaced his videos with some statement saying, I'm not making any value commentaries on what people should be, or you know, what what's important. I just want to talk about how it functions. And so don't misconstrue any of my detachment as saying your brain should be as complacent as I appear, or something like that. I might appear glib. That's not me. That's just that I'm having a conversation with some emotional detachment. It doesn't mean I'm not emotional when I think about it in a personal sense or something like that. I don't know, some concession to the fact that what he appears to be selling is a mindset that is too detached from there being a significant difference between the outcome of torment and the outcome of some sort of peaceful, comfortable existence, something like that. So anyway, I'm just trying to emphasize the point to any who might think that I had that it would be satisfying some agenda of mine to shut somebody up. I didn't want to do that, or to compel them to do that. When I did say, nowhere could that be construed as any effort I participated in. I mean, I said exactly the opposite. I rejected Nick's statement that somebody wants to shut him up. So, I can't, that's the trick of it. He has his sensibilities, and he has a very low tolerance for something going nasty in some way, or rude, or some perception of it going junkyard or something. And I can't do much for his perceptions, and certainly I'll never have a detached style, because frankly if I'm doing anything intelligent, I'm doing it because I have to, not because I enjoy being intelligent. As funny as that sounds, because I'm sort of a simple pleasures kind of guy. I don't need napkins and candlelight, and I don't need all these superficial things to be all neat and tidy, to get in the mood, so to speak. I'm not an order freak or anything like that. So yeah, the precision of eloquent and precise use of words. So I never liked poetry, because to me it might be pretty, it might be blah blah blah, but all that crap doesn't mean much to me. I'd rather just have a direct statement, get to the meat of it, so to speak. Now this facade bullshit, plastic flamingos, it just all seems very contrived. The AstroTurf and the plastic flamingos and the vinyl fencing, and it's just, fuck all that shit. But I do like order. I do like things to have. I don't like things being sloppy. But I guess there's a difference, I think, between pretensive structure and sloppy. Not exactly everything that isn't over organized. I guess that's what it is. You can have things that are overly overdone, and you can have something that is just symmetrical. And I guess that's all I'm saying. I just like things to be it doesn't matter. I'm just getting to the point that Nick's sensibilities are very different than mine regarding a standard of intelligent conversation. And although I would like to be able to moderate my personality enough to make it something Nick can tolerate. It just doesn't happen. So I guess it's just not something I can do. I can't bend it backward that far, or however you want to metaphor that. So enough on that, I suppose. It's always interesting, these personality things that come up, and yeah, you can spend a lot of time just trying to analyze all of that, the psychological barriers that exist that are so strong, where people can't even agree when they agree, just because of their sensibilities are so different. That, they just think they must be at conflict. Something like that. Something like that. Alright, well, enough of that crap. So, yeah, so I don't know if there's, that much to lose, because I think the argument that Nick was a fundamental player in paving the road of, or however you want to say that, this subject of the I, meaning, do you have an independently created thought, or is like every single thing composed by the crap that you've been exposed to? And those are important conversations. And the idea that, I would say the added idea that that's made out of two kinds of feedbacks, the social and the genetic, so to speak, the structure of how the individual psychology is molded, the things where you feel, the sensibilities is what the word I use for that. What color you like, and the intellectual side that is kind of independent, where the knowledge base exists in the New York Times, and it exists in Time magazine, and it exists in TV shows and the news and Fox and whatever the sources are, and all that analysis of the experts or the talking heads or the scientists, and the crap they're playing with. And these are very different parts of your brain, and they're both clearly just cause and effect. You clearly don't purely create anything. You just mix ingredients. Sort of explained that before, that's all consciousness is the noise that's made when ingredients are mixed. And you get to hear some of it through the bowl, and that's your awake part. And the rest is all happening behind the scenes, though. Most of the mixing is happening without you seeing any of it. You just hear every now and then, the spoon scrape against the metal, and you're given a glimmer of what you are. But like I said, I don't get to compose. This whole video was, fell out of my brain, and I don't seem to have a spoon touching any of it. There was nothing I was constructing. The brain just constructed it out of my decades of experience in living and talking and thinking and interacting. And this is how it's learned to do that. This is the speed it has the mixer on, or however you want to, it's all metaphors. So anyway, but yeah, Nick was a player in those conversations, and I think those conversations led to a good conclusion in the conversational part that doesn't relate necessarily to the world events part, or the what's at stake part, the non-value elements. And I think that's important, where I just don't think that Nick understands that the value parts are a logical thing. They're not just something we feel. They're something that is a truth. There's true statements, and I think it's just a fundamental truth that a feeling thing feeling badly is not a good event. It's a bad event. And if it doesn't produce some greater good, then it's an event to be prevented. And that's just a piece of logic. It's just a truth. It's a description of reality that's a truth. And you don't need to feel anything to be able to understand it, in a sense, as long as you know what a feeling is. And you know that they come in these two varieties of good and bad. The satisfaction of a deprivation and the extending of a deprivation. And you can know that those two things are very different. The resolution of a problem and the continuation or perpetuation of a problem. So, yeah, so there's no point in me re-emphasizing it, but that's where it always went off the rails for me and Nick, is just and as soon as the conversation got to the welfare of humankind or animal kind, the conversation somehow broke down, as if there couldn't be a difference between one outcome and another, and we couldn't see what different behavior the world needs to participate in for the different outcome to happen. And that's where it gets to this whole thing where I just get sort of annoyed at intelligent people who can't recognize that their brain should be devoted to that bigger purpose. Devoting their mental resources to figuring out how to get theirs, okay, what's in it for me, is a waste of a brain. And the only sensible purpose, in a Spockian kind of perspective, the only way you can logically understand what's happening is to understand that this is just about the distribution of suffering and gratification, and you're just one little piece of that, one tiny little brain, and there's no way to make it sensible to say I'm going to use this resource, my brain, something that can model and strategize and think and figure out solutions to problems, and have it work on only the problems made inside of my single psychology, and not understand that it really should be spending most of its time solving bigger problems than my problems. And that's something Nick just don't get. Just yeah. And it pisses me off, because I don't see how a smart person can avoid recognizing that the future is bigger than the present, and the present other feeling things is a bigger pool of welfares than my brain. My personal comfort is hardly important in the scale of the game. And when there's so many huge problems causing huge damage that are so easily fixed out there, when it takes so much work to get me laid, so to speak, or, so much energy has to be devoted to my gratification, when so little energy has to be devoted to at least making statements about and thinking about solving problems out there. Yeah. So anyway, yeah, I like Nick. I even like the arguments on economics and stuff, because he could, he made good arguments. I mean, clear ones anyway, mostly, and it was a nice challenge. I mean, I think I defeated his arguments about many things, in the sense that I think it's clear that the biggest liability, the worst kind of welfare to be paying, is the welfare to the rich. They're a huge consumer of value, and the yacht is like a perfect example. A huge amount of resources goes into the construction of something that will be a candy bar hardly anyone's going to eat. It's like having a whole factory that makes 4 candy bars that you give to 4 people. So you spend $1 million or $10 million to make 4 candy bars. So 4 people will have candy. It just doesn't make any sense when you can do the same thing and feed a ton of people candy bars. And they'll be just as satisfied and just as gratified without having to, you know, the rich are just way too high maintenance. They're insanely high maintenance in terms of they're only one person feeling happy, and they do it at a preposterously expensive rate. I mean, millions of dollars a year to make them happy, when you can do it on thousands of dollars with somebody else. So if you're going to go in the business of making happiness, why the fuck would you waste so much resource trying to make those assholes happy when you can make so many happy, who aren't high maintenance? And the fact that you didn't get that kind of logic is another where you're just saying, see, he's just not getting this value thing right. Somehow he's got a messed up perception of the role of these rich people, because they're the ones that have corrupted our society. They're the ones that have forced us to live in a society that's just about selling something, about making money, a profit. Just sell as many of the devices as possible. It doesn't matter if they work. Nothing matters. It doesn't matter if they kill people. It's just about making money. And as long as we can pay the insurance, okay, no problem, we kill some people. I mean, it's that kind of... That's the agenda of these assholes. So they're not only huge wasters of resources, they've completely distorted the values of our culture and turned it into a culture of exploitation. Exploitation is good because it's productive and we make money on it. And that's all it is. It's about a profit margin. It's not about doing something good and efficient and clean. It's just about making money. And that's always going to create small print, disposable product, breakable, just manipulations, strings attached, clauses, catch-22s all over the place. And that's what we're just living, buried under catch-22s. And it's just tragic that so few people, and then people like him, won't recognize that there's only one reason that's happening, and that's because we've given all these resources to these people who are completely feeding on our exploitation. They're the ones that want to exploit us. We don't want to exploit each other. We want to have honest jobs. We want to be productive. We want to do a good day's work for a good day's pay. Most people don't want to be stealing money from old people or marginally intelligent people with their, oh, I'm Mr. Solar, and I'm going to try to finagle you into a bullshit contract that really won't be in your interest, and it certainly won't be in the environment's interest. It'll just be in my interest, because I'll make a living. And that value comes straight from owners who never had to earn it. Owners that never had to have the job. The shitty job. Just being a shyster, just being a person manipulating text and paperwork, just creating fucking bureaucracies. They're just there for hiding the theft. But anyway, a whole nother subject. Alright, so, so there's not much news. I saw Old Fan just did a video, maybe I'll leave a link below, to a guy who did a little anti-natalist magazine. Just some sort of way of organizing different thinkers on the subject. And my only thought on the subject is that, I'm just not sure. I mean, maybe dark philosophy. You don't want to turn into some sort of goth thing, but it needs some other word than anti-natalism, in my opinion. This isn't, this isn't something to put it on a banner. Because the truth is, it's reality. So maybe it should be a magazine called Reality. Do they have one like that? I never saw one called Reality, or even Logic. because it doesn't seem that, there might be some sense that people really aren't capable of having a real conversation or applying something like logic, which means you have to do what the facts say. You have to be obedient to facts. And when you add the facts up about what we are, we're bugs. Okay, that's our origin, and we really haven't evolved away from that origin. We're doing the same stuff. We're feeding and we're fucking, and we're not doing much else. In terms of the rest of it is just psychological mechanisms that make us better feeders and fuckers. But we're just a competitive organism fighting in some kind of rather, in a crude and brutal way. Not fighting a very fair or Marquis of Queensberry rules kind of fight. It's very ugly and streety and cheaty. And that fact is just glaring. Can't miss it. It's everywhere you look. The manipulations, the bullshits, the lies, the fake people selling you fake shit. It's every fucking where. The racket, the canard, and that right there is, you could build an argument that's anti-life on that alone. Just that simple argument that we really haven't become anything substantially different than the praying mantis. We haven't upped the game very much. And with all this knowledge and intelligence, the fact that we haven't done that is sort of evidence of our fail. I mean, if you can, we can gain all this information about how the universe works, how the little bits inside of us, the little atomic stuff and all that crap. We have all those conversations about them, and yet we still play such a trashy game. I mean, yeah. We exterminate bugs, and that's all we are. And people just don't want to admit it. So anyway, that's probably enough now. So, just continuing doing my thing, and I'll continue doing it in this particular manner, I guess, until I really do want to make some kind of production videos, but it's just so much, time, and I'm always thinking some new thing and some other, so I never feel like I have the right plan, so I just keep waiting for a new plan, and I come up with a new plan, but it's, then a week later I have a new plan. So I have to acquire some better habits in terms of how I apportion my devotion and time. And I either will or won't do that. So, I'll see. No promises. So, yeah. So I think that's enough. So till next time and such, and so forth, and the whatnot.